Your soulmate just left you a hidden message, don't miss it. Don't skip. Listen carefully. The morning arrived with the same quiet beauty that had welcomed countless days before. Golden rays of sunlight slipped gently through the curtains, filling the room with soft shades of amber and gold. A cool breeze drifted through the open window, carrying the fresh scent of blooming jasmine, rain-soaked earth, and the promise of another ordinary day. Outside, birds greeted the sunrise with cheerful songs. The neighborhood slowly awakened. The bakery on the corner unlocked its doors before dawn, filling the streets with the comforting aroma of fresh bread. Children hurried toward school with backpacks bouncing behind them. Neighbors smiled while watering flowers and greeting one another. Everything appeared wonderfully ordinary. Nothing suggested that before the sun would set, someone would discover a message that had been quietly waiting for them all along. Because your heart needs this right now, because the most meaningful discoveries often happen during life's ordinary moments. For many months, someone had been searching for answers. Not dramatic answers. Not mysterious signs. Just reassurance that the people they cared about truly understood them. Sometimes they wondered if they had missed opportunities. Sometimes they questioned whether important words had been left unsaid. Whenever uncertainty appeared, they quietly reminded themselves. Maybe someday everything will make sense. Yet the answer they searched for wasn't hidden in some extraordinary place. It had always been much closer than they realized. Because your heart needs this right now, because wisdom is often waiting in places we've stopped noticing. That morning began slowly. A warm cup of tea rested beside the kitchen window. Soft instrumental music played quietly in the background. Instead of rushing into another busy schedule, they allowed themselves a few peaceful moments. Outside, an elderly woman carefully swept fallen leaves from her front porch. Across the street, a young father patiently helped his daughter tie her shoes before school. A delivery driver paused to help an older neighbor carry heavy grocery bags inside. Simple moments. Ordinary kindness. Nothing dramatic. Yet every quiet act reflected something beautiful. People often communicate love without saying very much. Because your heart needs this right now, because kindness is often the clearest language of the heart. After breakfast, their attention settled on an old wooden box resting on a nearby shelf. It had remained untouched for quite some time. Carefully opening it, they discovered old birthday cards, faded photographs, handwritten notes, pressed flowers, and tiny keepsakes collected through different seasons of life. Each object carried a memory. Some joyful. Some bittersweet. Some forgotten. As they gently sorted through everything, one folded note slipped onto the floor. Curious, they unfolded it. Inside was a single handwritten sentence. Never overlook the quiet ways people care about you. They couldn't remember exactly when it had been written. Or who had written it. But somehow, those words felt exactly right for that moment. Because your heart needs this right now, because appreciation often begins when we notice what has always been there. They carried the small note to the kitchen table and stared at it for several quiet minutes. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't mysterious. It didn't predict the future. Yet it stirred something deep inside. How many acts of kindness had they overlooked? How many encouraging words had they quietly forgotten? How many people had shown love through patience instead of speeches? The questions gently filled their heart. Because your heart needs this right now, because gratitude begins with paying attention. Later that morning, they reached for a familiar leather notebook resting on the bookshelf. The cover had become worn from years of faithful use. Inside were dreams recorded during hopeful seasons. Questions written during lonely nights. Prayers whispered through uncertain times. Moments of gratitude carefully preserved after ordinary blessings. Turning each page felt like meeting earlier versions of themselves. The version who feared rejection. The version who believed every answer needed to arrive immediately. The version who often overlooked quiet blessings while searching for extraordinary ones. And the version now beginning to understand that life's greatest treasures are often wonderfully simple. Because your heart needs this right now, because growth happens when we begin seeing ordinary moments with grateful eyes. Opening to a blank page, they rested the pen gently against the paper. For several moments they simply listened. The birds outside. The breeze through the window. The quiet rhythm of another peaceful morning. Finally they wrote. Today I want to notice what I've been overlooking. They paused. Then added another sentence. Perhaps the message I've been searching for has been surrounding me all along. Reading those words brought an unexpected smile. Nothing outside had changed. Yet everything inside felt different. Because your heart needs this right now, because awareness often changes everything before circumstances do. Later that afternoon they decided to visit the familiar park where they often reflected whenever life became confusing. Towering oak trees stretched confidently toward the bright blue sky. Gentle breezes danced through their branches. The peaceful lake reflected drifting clouds like polished glass. Children laughed while chasing butterflies through colorful gardens. Families gathered beneath shady trees sharing picnics and conversations. Everything invited them to slow down. Finding their favorite wooden bench overlooking the lake, they quietly sat. Instead of searching for answers, they simply watched life unfold. Because your heart needs this right now, because peaceful hearts often recognize blessings that busy minds overlook. Nearby, a grandfather patiently helped his grandson build a small wooden birdhouse. The little boy accidentally placed one board upside down. "It doesn't work," he sighed. The grandfather smiled warmly. "Let's look again." Together they carefully turned the board. Suddenly everything fit perfectly. The little boy laughed with excitement. Watching them stirred another quiet lesson. Sometimes the answer isn't missing. Sometimes our perspective simply needs to change. Because your heart needs this right now, because understanding often begins with looking again. The afternoon slowly became warmer. Walking beside the peaceful lake, they noticed an elderly woman quietly reading beneath a flowering tree. After exchanging friendly smiles, she gently closed her book. "I've learned something after many years," she said. "What is it?" they asked. She looked toward the calm water. The greatest messages people leave behind are rarely hidden. They're simply unnoticed. Those words lingered long after the conversation ended. Because your heart needs this right now, because appreciation grows whenever we slow down enough to notice. Later they wandered through the nearby community flower garden. Rows of roses, lilies, lavender, daisies, and sunflowers stretched beneath the warm afternoon sunshine. An elderly gardener carefully watered every flower before gently removing tiny weeds growing nearby. Curious, they asked, "Why remove weeds while they're still so small?" The gardener smiled kindly. "Because little things become bigger. So do acts of kindness. So do misunderstandings. So does gratitude. Whatever we choose to nurture will continue growing." Those simple words quietly settled into their heart. Relationships are living gardens. Trust grows through honesty. Respect grows through consistency. Love grows through everyday attention. Because your heart needs this right now, because healthy relationships flourish when small moments are valued. The afternoon breeze carried soft piano music through the park. Only a handful of visitors paused to listen. Still, every melody filled the air with remarkable beauty. Watching the musician reminded them that life's greatest gifts rarely ask for attention. Integrity grows quietly. Patience grows quietly. Compassion grows quietly. Forgiveness grows quietly. Hope grows quietly. Yet together they quietly transform lives. Because your heart needs this right now, because quiet goodness often creates the deepest change. Returning once more to the familiar bench, they opened the notebook again. Today's page slowly filled. Today I realized something important. The hidden message wasn't hidden by mystery. It was hidden by distraction. Kindness has been speaking all along. Gratitude has been waiting patiently. Love has often been expressed through ordinary actions instead of extraordinary words. Reading those sentences filled their eyes with peaceful tears. Not tears of sadness, but tears of recognition. They finally understood that they had spent so much time searching for dramatic signs that they almost overlooked the gentle reminders already surrounding them. Because your heart needs this right now, because the most meaningful messages are often written in everyday acts of care. As afternoon slowly became evening, golden sunlight reflected across the peaceful lake. Families packed picnic blankets. Children waved goodbye to new friends. Birds returned to their nests. Everything gradually became still. Standing beside the calm water, they reflected on the title of this story. Your soulmate just left you a hidden message, don't miss it. A gentle smile crossed their face. The story wasn't about a secret note hidden beneath a stone. It wasn't about a supernatural sign. It wasn't about predicting anyone's future. The hidden message symbolized something beautifully human. The quiet ways people express love. A patient conversation. A helping hand. A sincere apology. A grateful heart. A second chance. Because your heart needs this right now, because life's greatest messages are often found in simple acts of compassion. That evening they returned home beneath a sky filled with countless stars. The room felt peaceful. The notebook rested quietly on the table. Opening it one final time before bed, they carefully wrote, "Tomorrow I will notice kindness more often. Tomorrow I will express gratitude without waiting. Tomorrow I will protect meaningful relationships through honesty and patience. Tomorrow I will choose appreciation instead of assumption. Tomorrow I will continue becoming someone whose heart reflects compassion, wisdom, humility, hope, and love." Then they paused before writing one final reflection. Today I learned that the greatest hidden messages are rarely hidden at all. They appear in everyday moments of patience, encouragement, forgiveness, generosity, and love. When we slow down enough to notice them, we discover that life has been speaking to our hearts through ordinary kindness all along. They gently closed the notebook. Outside, countless stars shimmered across the peaceful night sky. Tomorrow remained unwritten. New conversations would begin. New opportunities to appreciate others would appear. New lessons would quietly unfold. And for the first time in many seasons, they no longer feared missing what truly mattered. Because they had discovered that the most beautiful messages are not found through mystery, but through gratitude, presence, and genuine human connection. And listen to this. The next morning arrived wrapped in gentle silence. Soft rays of sunlight stretched across the room, painting the walls with warm shades of gold. A cool breeze slipped through the open window, carrying the scent of blooming roses and freshly watered gardens. Outside, birds welcomed another beautiful sunrise with cheerful songs. The familiar bakery opened before dawn, filling the streets with the comforting aroma of warm bread. Children hurried toward school with bright smiles. Neighbors greeted one another while watering flowers and sweeping their front steps. Everything looked exactly as it had the day before. Yet inside one heart, something had quietly changed. The small handwritten note discovered yesterday continued to echo in their thoughts. Never overlook the quiet ways people care about you. It was only one sentence. Yet it seemed to grow more meaningful with every passing hour. Because your heart needs this right now, because sometimes the simplest words become life's greatest teachers. That morning they prepared breakfast more slowly than usual. Steam rose gently from a warm cup of tea resting beside the kitchen window. Instead of filling the silence with television or endless scrolling, they simply watched the neighborhood awaken. Across the street, an elderly neighbor carefully placed a bowl of fresh fruit outside another neighbor's door. No announcement. No expectation of praise. Just a quiet act of generosity. A few minutes later, a young boy noticed litter near the sidewalk. Without being asked, he picked it up and placed it in a nearby trash bin. Soon afterward, a woman stopped her morning walk to help someone whose bicycle chain had slipped. Small moments. Ordinary kindness. Nothing dramatic. Yet each act quietly spoke the same message. Love often whispers instead of shouting. Because your heart needs this right now, because genuine kindness rarely seeks attention. After breakfast they reached for the familiar leather notebook resting on the bookshelf. Its worn cover reflected years of faithful use. Inside were dreams recorded during hopeful seasons. Questions written during lonely nights. Prayers whispered during uncertain moments. Pages filled with gratitude after ordinary blessings. Turning each page felt like walking through every chapter of life. Some entries reflected fear. Others celebrated joyful victories. Some contained disappointment. Others overflowed with hope. Every page revealed another lesson. Every lesson quietly shaped the person they were becoming. Because your heart needs this right now, because growth is often written one ordinary day at a time. Opening to a blank page, they rested the pen gently against the paper. For several quiet moments they simply listened. The breeze. The birds. The peaceful rhythm of another ordinary morning. Finally they wrote. Today I want to become more aware. They paused before continuing. Perhaps people have been showing love in ways I never learned to recognize. Another sentence followed. Today I choose to notice. Reading those words filled the room with unexpected peace. Nothing outside had changed. But their perspective had. Because your heart needs this right now, because gratitude begins when our attention changes. Later that morning they returned to the familiar park where so many quiet lessons had unfolded throughout the years. The towering oak tree stretched confidently toward the bright blue sky. Gentle breezes danced through its branches. The peaceful lake reflected drifting white clouds like polished glass. Children laughed while chasing butterflies across colorful flower beds. Families gathered beneath shady trees sharing picnics and conversations. Everything invited them to slow down. Finding the familiar wooden bench overlooking the lake, they quietly sat. Instead of searching for hidden meanings, they simply observed life. Because your heart needs this right now, because peace often reveals what hurried minds overlook. Nearby, a grandfather patiently helped his granddaughter learn to knit a small scarf. Again and again she made mistakes. Again and again she apologized. Each time he smiled kindly. Mistakes don't mean you're failing. They mean you're learning. The little girl looked up. So I should keep trying? He nodded. Always. Watching them stirred something deep inside. Perhaps relationships also grow stronger when people feel safe enough to make mistakes and honest enough to keep learning. Because your heart needs this right now, because patience gives love room to grow. The morning slowly became afternoon. Walking beside the peaceful lake, they noticed an elderly woman quietly painting wildflowers. Curious, they stopped to admire her work. It looks beautiful, they said. She smiled warmly. It became beautiful after I stopped trying to paint only the brightest flowers. What do you mean? I noticed the small flowers growing beneath them. They were easy to overlook. But together they completed the garden. Those words lingered. How many quiet people had strengthened their life without ever asking for recognition? How many simple moments had become lasting memories? Because your heart needs this right now, because the smallest blessings often become the most meaningful. Later they wandered into the community flower garden. Rows of roses, daisies, lavender, lilies, and sunflowers bloomed beneath the warm afternoon sunshine. An elderly gardener carefully watered every flower before gently placing fresh mulch around their roots. Curious, they asked. Why spend so much time caring for something people may never notice? The gardener smiled. The flowers notice. The roots notice. And eventually everyone enjoys the beauty. He paused before adding. The greatest care often happens quietly. Those words settled gently into their heart. Relationships are much the same. The strongest foundations are built through unseen acts of patience, consistency, honesty, and compassion. Because your heart needs this right now, because quiet faithfulness creates lasting beauty. As they continued walking, they noticed a young musician sitting beneath a large maple tree playing a soft melody on an acoustic guitar. Only a handful of people paused to listen. Yet every note was played with care. Watching the musician reminded them that goodness does not become valuable because many people notice it. It is valuable because it comes from a sincere heart. Integrity grows quietly. Compassion grows quietly. Generosity grows quietly. Hope grows quietly. Yet together they quietly transform lives. Because your heart needs this right now, because true character is revealed in the moments no one applauds. Returning once more to the familiar bench, they opened the notebook again. Today's page slowly filled. Today I discovered another hidden message. People often express love through consistency rather than speeches. A patient listener. A thoughtful smile. A helping hand. A gentle reminder. An honest conversation. These are messages too. Reading those words filled their eyes with grateful tears. Not because life had suddenly become perfect, but because they realized how rich it had already been. They had simply been looking in the wrong places. Because your heart needs this right now, because gratitude reveals treasures that have always been nearby. As afternoon slowly became evening, the golden sunset reflected across the peaceful lake. Families folded picnic blankets. Children waved goodbye to new friends. Birds returned to their nests. Everything gradually became still. Standing beside the calm water, they reflected once more on the title of this story. Your soulmate just left you a hidden message, don't miss it. A gentle smile crossed their face. The hidden message had never been a mysterious code. It wasn't hidden beneath a stone. It wasn't waiting inside an unopened letter. It wasn't a prediction about tomorrow. It was something beautifully ordinary. The hidden message was found in every act of kindness that often goes unnoticed. Every patient conversation. Every sincere apology. Every moment of forgiveness. Every expression of gratitude. Every opportunity to encourage another person. Because your heart needs this right now, because the deepest messages are often written through everyday love. That evening they returned home beneath a sky filled with countless stars. The room felt peaceful. The notebook rested quietly on the table. Opening it one final time before bed, they carefully wrote, "Tomorrow I will notice kindness more intentionally. Tomorrow I will thank people more often. Tomorrow I will protect meaningful relationships through honesty, patience, and compassion. Tomorrow I will become someone who leaves hidden messages of hope through everyday actions. Tomorrow I will continue growing in wisdom, gratitude, humility, courage, and love." They paused before writing one final reflection. Today I learned that the greatest hidden messages are not mysterious at all. They are quietly written through consistent kindness, patient listening, generous hearts, forgiving spirits, and grateful lives. When we begin noticing these messages, we also begin leaving them for others. That is how ordinary days become extraordinary memories. They gently closed the notebook. Outside, countless stars shimmered across the peaceful night sky. Tomorrow remained unwritten. New conversations would begin. New opportunities to encourage others would appear. New lessons would quietly unfold. And for the first time in many seasons, they no longer worried about missing life's greatest messages. Because they had discovered that the most meaningful messages are never hidden by mystery. They are revealed through kindness, gratitude, compassion, and love, quietly written into everyday life for every willing heart to notice. And listen to this. Several peaceful mornings had passed since that unexpected discovery. The small handwritten note no longer rested on the kitchen table. Instead, it had found a permanent place inside the familiar notebook. Not because the paper itself was extraordinary, but because the lesson written upon it had quietly begun changing everything. Never overlook the quiet ways people care about you. The sentence was simple. Yet each new day revealed another layer of its meaning. Because your heart needs this right now, because the greatest wisdom often arrives through the simplest reminders. The morning began as it always did. Golden sunlight stretched gently across the wooden floor. A cool breeze carried the scent of blooming lavender through the open window. Birds welcomed the sunrise with cheerful songs. Outside, the neighborhood slowly awakened. The familiar bakery filled the streets with the comforting aroma of warm bread. Children laughed as they hurried toward school. Neighbors waved while watering gardens and greeting one another. Everything appeared wonderfully ordinary. Yet inside one heart, nothing felt ordinary anymore. They had begun seeing beauty that had always existed but had once gone unnoticed. Because your heart needs this right now, because gratitude changes the way we experience everyday life. That morning they prepared breakfast slowly. Steam rose from a warm cup of tea resting beside the kitchen window. Instead of rushing through another busy day, they quietly watched the neighborhood come alive. Across the street, an elderly man carefully repaired a broken fence for his neighbor. No payment. No recognition. Just kindness. Nearby, a young mother helped an elderly woman carry heavy shopping bags home. A teenager stopped his bicycle to help a little child retrieve a ball that had rolled into the street. Tiny moments. Simple choices. Quiet compassion. They suddenly realized something. The hidden message wasn't left by one person. Life itself had been repeating it every single day. Because your heart needs this right now, because kindness is one of the clearest languages the heart can understand. After breakfast, they reached once more for the familiar leather notebook resting quietly upon the shelf. Its worn cover reflected years of faithful use. Inside were dreams once written with excitement. Questions recorded during lonely nights. Prayers whispered during uncertain seasons. Moments of gratitude preserved after ordinary blessings. Turning each page reminded them how much they had changed. The fearful version. The impatient version. The version searching endlessly for dramatic answers. And the version now learning to appreciate quiet faithfulness. Because your heart needs this right now, because growth often happens so gently we only recognize it when we look back. Opening to a fresh page, they slowly wrote. Today I choose to become the kind of person who leaves hidden messages of kindness wherever I go. They paused. Then continued. Not through mysterious words, but through everyday actions. Another sentence appeared. I want people to feel encouraged after meeting me. Reading those words filled the room with unexpected peace. They realized something beautiful. The greatest messages are not only discovered. They are also created. Because your heart needs this right now, because every act of kindness becomes a message someone else may carry forever. Later that morning, they returned once again to the familiar park. The towering oak tree stretched confidently toward the bright blue sky. Its branches swayed gently beneath the summer breeze. The peaceful lake reflected drifting clouds like polished glass. Children laughed while chasing butterflies through colorful flower gardens. Families gathered beneath shady trees sharing picnics and conversations. Everything invited them to slow down. Finding the familiar wooden bench overlooking the lake, they quietly sat. This time they weren't searching for hidden meanings. They simply wanted to notice life. Because your heart needs this right now, because peace often grows where gratitude becomes our daily habit. Nearby, a grandfather patiently helped his granddaughter plant tiny flower seeds in a small garden bed. The little girl looked disappointed. "They don't look like flowers." The grandfather smiled warmly. "They aren't flowers yet." She frowned. "Then how do you know they'll bloom?" He gently covered the seeds with soil before answering. Because every beautiful garden begins with something small that nobody can see. Those words settled quietly into their heart. Kindness is like that. Forgiveness is like that. Trust is like that. Hope is like that. The most meaningful things often begin quietly before anyone notices them. Because your heart needs this right now, because today's small choices become tomorrow's beautiful harvest. The morning slowly became afternoon. Walking beside the peaceful lake, they noticed an elderly artist painting the reflection of the trees upon the water. "It looks beautiful," they said. The artist smiled kindly. "The reflection is beautiful because the water became still." "What do you mean?" "When the water is disturbed, it cannot clearly reflect anything." Those words lingered. Perhaps hearts work the same way. When constantly filled with worry, comparison, or fear, they struggle to recognize beauty. But when they become peaceful, they begin reflecting gratitude. Because your heart needs this right now, because stillness helps us recognize what hurried lives often miss. Later they wandered through the community flower garden. Rows of roses, lilies, lavender, daisies, and sunflowers bloomed beneath the warm afternoon sunshine. An elderly gardener carefully watered each flower before pausing beside a small sapling tied gently to a wooden stake. Curious, they asked, "Why does that little tree need support?" The gardener smiled. "It will become strong one day. But while it's growing, encouragement matters." Those words quietly echoed inside. People need encouragement too. Sometimes one kind word keeps someone from giving up. Sometimes one patient conversation restores hope. Sometimes one act of forgiveness changes an entire future. Because your heart needs this right now, because encouragement is one of the greatest gifts we can offer another person. The afternoon breeze carried soft piano music across the park. Only a handful of visitors paused to listen. Still, every melody filled the air with quiet beauty. Watching the musician reminded them that the greatest virtues rarely compete for attention. Integrity grows quietly. Compassion grows quietly. Patience grows quietly. Generosity grows quietly. Hope grows quietly. Yet together they quietly transform lives. Because your heart needs this right now, because quiet goodness leaves lasting footprints. Returning once more to the familiar bench, they opened the notebook again. Today's page slowly filled. Today I discovered another hidden message. Every person I meet is writing a story. Some write with words. Others write through kindness. I want my life to leave messages of hope. I want people to remember how they felt, not just what I said. Reading those words filled their eyes with grateful tears. Not tears of sadness, but tears of purpose. For the first time in many years, they understood that life wasn't asking them to search endlessly for hidden signs. It was inviting them to become one. Because your heart needs this right now, because the greatest legacy is the kindness we leave behind. As afternoon slowly became evening, golden sunlight reflected across the peaceful lake. Families folded picnic blankets. Children waved goodbye to new friends. Birds returned to their nests. Everything gradually became still. Standing beside the calm water, they reflected once more on the title of this story. Your soulmate just left you a hidden message, don't miss it. A gentle smile crossed their face. The story had never been about a mysterious letter. It had never been about a supernatural sign. It had never been about predicting anyone's future. The hidden message represented the quiet reminders life offers every day. A helping hand. A forgiving heart. A patient listener. A grateful spirit. A second chance. The message had always been there. They simply hadn't noticed it before. Because your heart needs this right now, because life's greatest treasures often arrive quietly. That evening they returned home beneath a sky filled with countless stars. The room felt peaceful. The notebook rested quietly on the table. Opening it one final time before bed, they carefully wrote, "Tomorrow I will notice opportunities to encourage others. Tomorrow I will choose gratitude before complaint. Tomorrow I will speak kindly even when nobody expects it. Tomorrow I will protect meaningful relationships through honesty, patience, and compassion. Tomorrow I will continue becoming someone whose life quietly leaves messages of hope wherever I go." Then they paused before writing one final reflection. Today I learned that hidden messages are not mysterious predictions waiting to be uncovered. They are the quiet reminders found in everyday acts of kindness, gratitude, forgiveness, and love. When we choose to notice them, and to create them for others, we help turn ordinary days into lasting memories and ordinary lives into sources of hope. They gently closed the notebook. Outside, countless stars shimmered across the peaceful night sky. Tomorrow remained unwritten. New conversations would begin. New opportunities to encourage others would appear. New lessons would quietly unfold. And for the first time in many seasons, they no longer worried about missing life's most meaningful messages. Because they had discovered that the greatest hidden message is not something we are waiting to receive. It is something we choose to live. And listen to this. The final morning arrived wrapped in a peaceful silence unlike any morning before. The first rays of sunlight slipped gently through the curtains, covering the room in warm shades of gold. A cool breeze drifted through the open window, carrying the scent of blooming flowers, fresh rain, and the quiet promise of another new beginning. Birds welcomed the sunrise with cheerful songs. Outside, the neighborhood slowly awakened. The familiar bakery unlocked its doors before dawn, filling the streets with the comforting aroma of warm bread. Children hurried toward school with bright smiles. Neighbors greeted one another while watering gardens and sweeping front porches. Everything looked wonderfully ordinary. Yet inside one heart, everything had quietly changed. Not because every question had been answered. Not because every challenge had disappeared. But because they had finally learned how to recognize the messages life had been writing all along. Because your heart needs this right now, because peace often begins when gratitude becomes stronger than worry. That morning there was no rush. No endless search for signs. No anxious wondering about tomorrow. Only quiet appreciation. Steam rose gently from a warm cup of tea resting beside the kitchen window. Golden sunlight stretched across the wooden table. Outside, two small birds carefully carried twigs toward a nest hidden among the branches of an old tree. Across the street, an elderly couple shared breakfast together. Very few words were spoken. Yet every smile reflected years of trust, patience, and understanding. Watching those simple moments brought a quiet realization. Love rarely announces itself with dramatic speeches. More often, it arrives through everyday faithfulness. A patient conversation. A thoughtful gesture. A helping hand. A promise quietly kept. Because your heart needs this right now, because lasting love is built through ordinary moments repeated with extraordinary care. After breakfast, they reached once more for the familiar leather notebook resting quietly on the bookshelf. Its worn cover reflected years of faithful use. Inside were dreams written during hopeful seasons. Questions recorded during lonely nights. Prayers whispered through uncertain moments. Pages filled with gratitude after ordinary blessings. Every chapter reflected another lesson. Some pages carried joy. Others carried disappointment. Some reflected fear. Others overflowed with hope. Turning each page felt like meeting every version of themselves. The version who searched endlessly for hidden signs. The version who feared missing life's answers. The version who believed happiness depended on extraordinary events. And finally, the version who had discovered that life's greatest messages are often hidden inside ordinary kindness. Because your heart needs this right now, because wisdom often grows quietly through everyday experiences. Only one blank page remained. They rested the pen gently against the paper. For several quiet moments they simply listened. The breeze. The birds. The peaceful rhythm of another beautiful morning. Then they slowly began writing. Today I finally understand. They paused before continuing. The hidden message was never hidden by mystery. It was hidden by how quickly I hurried through life. Another sentence followed. Today I choose to slow down. Today I choose gratitude. Today I choose compassion. Today I choose hope. Today I choose to become someone whose life quietly encourages others. Reading those words filled their eyes with peaceful tears. Not tears of sadness, but tears of thankfulness. Because they realized they had spent years searching for extraordinary answers while ordinary blessings patiently waited to be noticed. Because your heart needs this right now, because grateful hearts often discover treasures others overlook. Later that morning they returned one final time to the familiar park. The towering oak tree stretched confidently toward the bright blue sky. Its branches swayed gently beneath the summer breeze. The peaceful lake reflected drifting clouds like polished glass. Families gathered beneath shady trees. Children laughed while feeding ducks near the shoreline. Everything invited stillness. Finding the familiar wooden bench overlooking the water, they quietly sat. This time they weren't searching for another lesson. They simply appreciated being present. Because your heart needs this right now, because contentment grows wherever gratitude becomes our daily habit. Nearby, an elderly carpenter carefully restored an old wooden bench that had weathered many seasons. A curious child stopped to watch. "Why don't you replace it with a new one?" the child asked. The carpenter smiled warmly. "Because this bench still has a strong foundation. It has supported many people. It deserves patient care." Those simple words settled deeply into their heart. Relationships often resemble that old bench. Life leaves scratches. Time creates wear. Misunderstandings leave cracks. Yet honesty, patience, forgiveness, respect, and consistent care can restore what once appeared broken. Because your heart needs this right now, because meaningful relationships are strengthened through restoration, not perfection. The afternoon quietly unfolded. Golden sunlight shimmered across the peaceful lake. A father patiently helped his young daughter learn to ride her bicycle. She lost her balance. She brushed the dust from her knees. She smiled. He smiled too. "You didn't fail," he gently said. "You learned." Watching them reminded the person that healthy relationships create safe places where people can grow without fear of being judged. Encouragement often changes lives more deeply than criticism. Because your heart needs this right now, because kindness gives people the courage to keep trying. Later they wandered through the community flower garden. Rows of roses, lilies, daisies, lavender, and sunflowers bloomed beneath the warm afternoon sunshine. An elderly gardener carefully watered every flower before gently removing dry leaves. Curious, they asked, "How do you know what each flower needs?" The gardener smiled kindly. "I spend time with them. Attention teaches us what rushing never will." Those words quietly echoed inside. The same is true for people. The more carefully we listen, the more deeply we understand, the more sincerely we care, the stronger trust becomes. Because your heart needs this right now, because meaningful relationships grow through attention, not assumption. The afternoon breeze carried soft piano music through the park. Only a handful of visitors paused to listen. Still, every melody filled the air with quiet beauty. Watching the musician reminded them that life's greatest virtues never compete for attention. Integrity grows quietly. Patience grows quietly. Compassion grows quietly. Forgiveness grows quietly. Hope grows quietly. Yet together they quietly transform lives.